Hi, everyone. Can you guys all hear me? Just a happy? Oh, okay, great. Okay. Well, my name is Zeta, and my partner Amelia and I will be discussing collection development issues regarding ebooks in academic libraries. Okay, so in the past decade, ebooks have become a growing trend, and as people become more accustomed to the concept of online resources and digital readers, their preferences for them have increased. In 2009, Highwire Press and Stanford University conducted a survey to understand the librarian's stance on ebooks. The data in this chart represents the responses gathered when librarians were asked what percentage of their budgets currently go towards ebooks, and then what percentage they think will go towards ebooks in the next 5 years. And so as you can see, librarians generally predict a rise in their budgets allocated to ebooks. So I'm going to start this presentation off by talking about ebook acquisitions, and then Amelia is going to talk some about current user studies and technical issues, and then she'll show you the resources we used. Okay, so this presentation is based on scholarly journal articles gathered through lists on Wilson Web, and you can see a few of the thesauri terms that we found really worked best. And then we also used Web of Science to locate some of the citation information. Now, at this time, there's a fair amount of user studies relating to ebooks and a growing selection of articles on cataloging, but overall we found that there's not quite as much really current scholarly literature detailing the acquisitional issues like subscription plans. And really this is probably because the details of many subscription plans are varied and they're still being expanded at the supplier level. So we also looked at some supplier websites for information as well. Here are a few of the larger ebook suppliers used by academic libraries. Remember that vendors provide ebooks from a variety of publishers, whereas publishers provide only the books that they publish. So if you were, for say, to go through Springer Link, you're limited because you're only going to get Springer ebooks. The Castor article cited below and the Highwire Press study are really good resources for learning about suppliers. The study, for instance, has a list of suppliers that librarians use today, as well as those that they said that they would really like to use. So that's a good, really current resource. Okay, looks like I just lost connection. Can you guys hear me still? Okay, I think we were at a purchase title, so I'm just going to, the purchase subscriber model, so I'm just going to continue on with that. So libraries can purchase titles, and when you own them, you can archive them, but that means that you're also responsible for storing the titles. And also, when you own the edition you purchase, or when you purchase an edition, you own that edition. So this may not be the best option for libraries that are handling information that's often changing, like medical textbooks. And it's also oftentimes the most expensive option because individual prices are often higher because the ebook will be used by multiple users. Now, the patron-driven model is relatively new and cost-effective. The library pre-selects titles and loads them into its catalog, and then the patron selects a title to check out through the catalog, and that title is automatically purchased. So libraries don't really need to worry about buying ebooks that the patrons don't use. The Levine-Clark article cited below is about a study that is currently underway at the University of Denver, and that library has a fairly low circulation rate, so it's trying right now it's trying out a patron-driven model for both print and electronic books to see if they can cut costs by renting them and then purchasing only the books that are triggered by the patrons through their catalog. So more information about that study will be published as it becomes available. And then lastly, I also read about a short-term loan model where the library can request titles for a very short period, about a week or so, and then after that they can either buy the title, extend the loan period, or transfer the title to the patron-driven model. At this time, very few vendors tend to have that model right now, but I know that eBay, for example, is currently testing it out. I just want to reiterate, really one of the best ways to learn about these different options is to look at supplier websites because many of them offer different models. Listservs are also a really good resource, and I think that more scholarly information will be published on these models in the next few years. Nope. And it looks like I can't advance the slides anymore. Oh, there we go. Acquisition issues. There are a few big acquisition issues that need to be considered. First, many suppliers want you to pay in advance, especially for the patron-driven model. But know that this may conflict with the budgeting and payment structure some libraries already have in place because you have to provide the money up front. The second issue is release dates. The Castor article mentions that the decision regarding whether to buy the print version of a work libraries have that big decision as to whether to buy a print version of a work that comes out right away or wait for the e-version. Now, some publishers are getting really good about releasing ebooks at the same time as hardbacks, but there is still sometimes a lag in electronic publication, so you might be waiting around for a certain ebook. And then the big issue really is price. The Castor article also estimates that prices for ebooks are 1.2 to 1.7 times the price of hardbacks. And personally, it's been my experience that in-demand textbooks like medical texts can cost even more than that. And then on top of that, there may be an annual subscription fee. So really, ebooks can be pretty pricey. Bundling is also an issue to consider because suppliers sometimes give discounts when ebooks are bought as a set, and some titles are only offered as part of a bundle. Ashcroft writes that librarians are split on the concept of bundling, and some like the bargains that are offered, while others would like to see more options for individual selection of titles. And then finally, libraries should also consider how they plan to market their ebooks really early on. A 2010 article by Vasilius and Rowley states that not all academic libraries have solid strategic marketing plans, and they suggest that libraries continue to look for innovative tools and digital pathways to engage users, but also to consider word-of-mouth tactics as well. And Amelia, I think I lost control. Could you advance? Oh, great. Okay, so finally, the last point I'd like to point out, or the last thing I'd like to talk about is some licensing issues and terms associated with ebooks. And really, this all kind of goes under the larger umbrella of digital rights management. So the first issue is the single versus multiple user access. And this is something that you'd really want to talk to your supplier about because multiple user access, what that means is that multiple patrons can use the same book at the same time, but that can be very expensive. Now, perpetual access means that libraries pay a one-time purchase price for a title, and then the supplier hosts that title so that the library has continual access to it. But then again, remember that there may be an annual maintenance fee that goes along with that. Another issue is whether or not your license restricts interlibrary loans, which many suppliers at this time do, and as well as the creation of course packs. And really that could be kind of a copyright issue. Also, course reserves can be tricky because, as Ashcroft points out, a whole class will need to use this same ebook, but they may max out on the license for how many people can be using that title at the same time. Also, you'll want to be very clear about your options when you're purchasing as part of a consortium. You'll want to make sure that the different branches will all have access to the titles, and that multiple users will have access as well. And then finally, the last issue I want to mention is the print-on-demand feature that some suppliers will allow, which means that patrons can either print a copy or request a copy from the supplier. And this may be considered a copyright infringement in some cases, so once again, you really want to make sure that you're on the same page with your supplier. So I guess to kind of sum this up, it's really imperative that librarians become educated about these digital rights issues in terms before they sign a contract. All right, and I'm going to now turn this over to Amelia.